All right, welcome. This is the December 10th, 2024 open public meeting of the Needham Library Board of Trustees being held, thankfully, via hybrid format, allowing myself and others to remotely attend. First, I will take a roll call to confirm that trustees, library staff, and persons anticipated to be on the agenda are present and can hear me. So roll call, starting with Kay Cahill.
Here.
Rob Pettit. Jay Fialkov.
Here.
Michael O'Neill.
Here.
Megan Small.
Here.
Joshua Small.
Here.
And me, Erhard Grafe, I am here. All right, library staff, library director, Robert McLean. Administrative specialist, Jenna White.
Here.
Program specialist, Gail and Dennett.
Here.
Recording secretary, Faith Chrisley.
Here.
We also have other attendees that we are excited to have join us tonight. Brett Benson from UTIL is here. Hello. And Hank Haff, Needham's Director of Design and Construction. Thank you for joining us. Do we have any representatives from the Library Foundation of Needham with us in the room? No?
Only me as the trustee member liaison.
Always happy to have you here, Jay.
Okay.
So this meeting is being recorded. If there's a problem that prevents the completion of this meeting, we'll reconvene at 7 p.m. on what appears to be Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2024. So I hereby call this meeting of the Needham Board of Library Trustees to order at 7:03 p.m.
All right, do you mean January? January?
January. Oh, you're right.
What do you say?
Is it January 14th?
Valentine's
Is January 14th the right
That might
date?
be a romantic
Can we
evening.
confirm me on that?
Day.
Yes, it's the second Tuesday of January.
Also special meeting election.
Okay, good. All right. I almost skipped a whole month and we have too much work to do to do that.
If the election day is January 14th, we probably won't have our meeting. Normally we don't on election day.
It's just for the.
It's just for the yeah, it's for the override.
That's it.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing else.
We can check with the town clerk's office regarding that, but I don't think we'll cancel our meeting.
Okay.
Is my guess. So as a reminder, citizens are welcome to speak for up to 3 minutes each, not to exceed a total of 10 minutes. Citizens are encouraged to inform the library director in advance of their intention to speak. Those who provide advance notice will be called upon first, while the board will take public comments under advisement. There may be no opportunity for discussion or debate during this portion of the meeting. Do we have any public in attendance wishing to comment? No? All right, then moving on to the minutes. A reminder that we are reviewing the October meeting minutes again this evening. And I request a motion to approve the minutes of October 8th, 2024, and then we can discuss them.
I second.
A second? Great, thank you. So any discussion on the revisions to the October 8 minutes?
I'm happy with how it's been reworded such that the numbers add up.
Yep.
So I'm good with it. Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, then we'll move to a roll call vote to adopt those minutes. Kay Cahill,
Aye.
Rob Pettit,
Aye.
Jay Fialkov,
Aye.
Michael O'Neill,
Aye.
Megan Small,
Aye.
Joshua Small,
Aye.
and me, Erhard Grafe, I am aye. That's unanimous. We adopt those minutes as revised. And now moving on to November meeting minutes, I request a motion to approve the minutes of the November 12th, 2024 meeting.
Motion.
So moved. All right.
Second.
Second? Great. Thank you. Opening for discussion on the November minutes.
I had a few comments,
Please.
mostly small. The first one is the smallest. The number 3, where you refer to the youth renovation. I'm not sure why, if the Y is capitalized, maybe the R2 or vice versa. That's the smallest. I'm sorry,
It's on page 1.
it's on page 1, number 3. I don't, feel strongly about it, just while I was making comments. A question about the financial reports. Not so much an adjustment to the minutes, but, I just wasn't sure whether it referred to making an argument. Is somebody, Erhard, are we drafting a letter, to make that case for FinCom? Is that something that's happening? It's just my question about it.
Our intention is to draft a letter, yes.
Okay. Then my next comment is that in number 11, where it talks about, I'm not working on any budget. So I don't know what that is. Jay and Rob.
Is that you noted, is the they there referring to the elephant? So Jay
Yes.
and Rob have noted that the elephant.
Okay,
They meaning the elephant. yeah.
Right.
That the elephant.
okay, so that, just wanted to be clear about that. I didn't have anything else.
And the next one, it jumps from 11 to 131.
I'm sorry, I missed that correction.
The numbering after 11.
Oh, yes. I had a
131 is 12.
I had a few
That should be 12, right?
I had a few typos I noted. In number 1, we spelled December incorrectly in the last sentence. I also thought that under financial reports in section 5, it might make sense, since this is a public document, to write out FinCom as the finance committee, since FinCom may not be generally understood to folks outside of town government. And
What page is that on, Erhard?
that is on page 2. The last thing I noted was under the DEI staff efforts in October 2024, under the Children's Department. I think the normal English transliteration of Rosh Hashanah is Hashanah. I think it's missing an H in the middle. Anyone else have anything to? All right, hearing none, moving to a roll call vote. This is to adopt the November meeting minutes. Those in favor, please say aye. Kay Cahill,
Aye.
Rob Pettit,
Aye.
Jay Fialkoff,
Aye.
Michael O'Neill,
Aye.
Megan Small,
Aye.
Joshua Small,
Aye.
and me, Erhard Grafe, aye. So those are adopted unanimously. Great, and so we can move on. We welcome back Brett Benson from UTIL to give us an update on the design phase for our teen and young adult area. Take it away.
Great, thanks, Erhard. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to pull up my screen here. Hopefully everybody can see this. All right, here we are. We met with the PPBC last night to review our progress on the project. So we'll be kind of reprising some of that presentation for you all tonight. I'm going to try to go through fairly quickly so that there's time for questions and answers at the end. I know you have a packed agenda tonight. I want to be sensitive to your time. So 3 things to go through tonight. One is where we are in design development. Second is to look at the overall project schedule. And then thirdly, to review the design development cost estimate. We'll review this at the end, but just as a reminder, design development is the second of 3 important design phases that we'll be going through, or that we are going through with this design process. It's a moment where We get a little bit more fine grained, but not totally fine grained, not down to the 1/4 inch. Maybe it's more to the 6 inch kind of area of resolution. But we've engaged a lot more of our engineers in the process, so we have a lot more information from all of them about how this renovation is going to move forward. Um, just as a reminder to everybody and as a way to kind of orient all of you, this is the central stair. The rosemary entrance is to the upper part of the page. This is the existing young adult area, and the expanded footprint of the teen room incorporates 2 entry points here and here. Hopefully you can see my mouse with this. It includes a area of bookshelves that ring 2 sides of the space, a central lounge area, a craft area that's underneath the existing skylight, a group work area facing off to the street to the south, and then within the existing young adult room, a new quiet study area. We've
People
looked,
see- I'm sorry.
pardon me.
A bit vague,
Can people see this?
a little blurry.
Okay.
A little blurry.
I was thinking maybe we should turn the light down.
Is it the screen is hard to see? It does appear better on the flat screen TV. I don't know if that's showing up or this presentation showing up on the flat screen TV in that room.
We'll do it. Here you go.
Hey,
Is that better?
It's still a little
Yeah,
blurry,
it's
but
just
okay.
your cursor I couldn't quite follow it.
Yeah.
Thank
Let
you.
me,
Hold on. I'll take a look.
I'll put the laser pointer on too. Maybe that'll be a little bit easier to follow along.
That's better.
that's better. Thank
So
you.
bookshelf area here and here, central lounge area, craft area underneath the skylights, the existing skylight, group area, group work area facing Rosemary, and then a quiet study room in the existing teen room. And we've narrowed down to 2 flooring types, which you'll kind of see here on the plan. The first type is what's called a marmoleum. It's a linoleum product that is very durable, easy to maintain, stain and scratch resistant. So excellent for the craft area and for the primary walking paths around the new teen area. And then also a carpet in the lounge area in the quiet study that will be great for acoustics in those spaces, will give a little bit more softness, but the type of carpet that we'll be specifying will still be extremely durable. We discussed it a little bit last night that everybody will be tired of looking at it before it's actually physically needed to be replaced. So I think it'll be a very durable product for the library. This is what we call a reflected ceiling plan. It's essentially if we put a mirror on the floor and saw everything that was located up on the ceiling, this is what we would see. And there's really 3 types of materials that we're using. One is a linear wood ceiling in the lounge area and over the new entrance. That's kind of depicted in this little thumbnail of an image. The second is more traditional drywall, which you see in the craft area and the group work area. That group work area is where the sloped ceiling occurs along Rosemary to capture some of that clerestory. And then in the quiet study room, to replace that kind of drooping curvilinear ceiling that's there now, we're proposing a stretched fabric that is very highly acoustically rated, so that space, which has been identified as a quiet study room, actually has the acoustics to support those types of uses. And now we'll kind of move into some 3D views. Some of these are still very basic. I assure you the room will not be all white once we're done, but we're just
Brett?
starting. Yes.
Can I ask a quick question about the previous slide about the acoustic stuff?
Yeah.
I'm sure, I just don't know, but where there's hard surfaced floor, is the ceiling also somewhat hard surface? Like, is that gonna be reflective of sound, or is there gonna be sound absorbing stuff above, like the hard floors in that circle around, so it's not bouncing back and forth between the floor and the ceiling?
Yep, that's a great question. So it's going to be a little bit of a mixture of both. In the craft area, we've identified, and I'll cover this in just a couple of slides forward, this wall as an acoustic wall paneling wall to help with some of those acoustic material or acoustic properties of that space. We do want to have a resilient floor, not carpet in that space, just so, we anticipate that in addition to crafts, that's the area where teens will be eating. So we want to make sure that it's extremely easy to clean. So we're imagining that's how we'll deal with acoustics in that space. And then in the group work area where the sloped ceiling occurs, we'll be looking at adding some distinct acoustic panels in that zone just to deal with some of the reverberation that might happen in that space. Otherwise, in the wood area here, in the lounge, and then the quiet study, those are highly absorptive materials acoustically. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Brett, I had a question. Is the stretched fabric, is it tear resistant? Just because we have young people who are adventurous.
Yes, it is tear resistant. It will be most likely a reinforced nylon, although we do have to kind of narrow down precisely what the material it will be. There are also vinyl options as well. The ceiling is 15 feet up,
Okay.
so it won't be within easy reach, although I do have one teenager and one who's soon to be a teenager, so I wouldn't put it beyond them to be able to try to reach it. We want to make sure that it's a very robust material, knowing that it's a public library, there will be teenagers in this space. So we'll be looking very closely at some of those details.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to some of these 3D views. And like I said, it won't be all white when we're done. We're just starting to visualize the spatial properties of these spaces. So if you can imagine yourself standing in the library now where the clerestory and the mural is, that is what this wall is here. The clerestories are just out of view, but providing all of this natural light. This is the new craft room. So what we've identified here is some new cabinetry that will be going along the base and a large television in this zone. We're starting to work on identifying what the particular furniture is, but we haven't included it in this 3D view yet. And then just off to the left here, we're missing a little bit of door hardware, but we're imagining this is a big closet for the teen librarian to store all sorts of supplies, both craft materials and other things that'll be used throughout that teen space. Some of the materials that we're thinking of for the space are, like I said, a acoustic wall panel along that back wall that can take on a number of different shapes and sizes. We also have the possibility of printing a custom graphic on that acoustic wall. So if I back up to this image, we're imagining this entire wall will be that acoustic wall panel, just to help deal with some of the acoustic issues in that space that we were talking about a little bit earlier. We've also identified a wainscot material, so I'll just go, forgive me for going back and forth, but you might be able to see on the screen a faint line along this edge. That will be at counter height, so just above tabletop height. That will be a very durable material that goes up to that height. We know that furniture is going to move around a lot, and we don't want to have the furniture scuff the walls in this zone. So we're planning that very durable material up to the countertop height, which is about 34 inches above the floor. And then finally, some bulletin board material so that different notices can be placed in here. If teens are working on special projects, they'll be able to pin them up on the wall as well. In terms of the cabinetry, we're looking at an engineered quartz countertop that is really top of the line type of product in terms of durability and aesthetics. We think that that's the type of thing you're really going to need in a space like this. Again, a really bulletproof type of product. Cabinet faces will be made out of MDF, which is a kind of wood product with plastic laminate as the faces. And then in terms of the banquette, which maybe if I back up in the plan, couple slides here, there is a built-in banquette along this wall. This is partially where the existing railing is, overlooking the two-story space at the entrance. That banquette will include on the seat a nicely textured vinyl so that it is super easily cleaned. And then on the back, a bleach washable fabric. So again, something that's very durable, very easy to clean, forgiving for kids who are eating in that space. And we'll be choosing patterns and colors that also will, if it does get stained, will hide stains very easily and won't kind of stand out as something that looks off in the space. All right, stepping a little bit further back into that space, this is a 3D view of the lounge. Erhard asked a very good question last night about the relative brightness of the space. I just want to say these are in progress 3D views and the lighting isn't quite right. In fact, all of the artificial lighting that we're planning for the space isn't turned on in these views, so it looks a little bit dark in the center and quite bright at the perimeter. That's a little bit of the settings and just a little bit of the constraints of the software that we use. We'll be working on improving these images. We want to make sure that the natural light in that space feels very comfortable, that the space feels open and bright and not too closed off. Some of the components that you're seeing here in this lounge, so we're standing as if we had walked a couple of steps into the front door, looking off in the distance here to the existing teen room. The teen librarian will be located right here, so great sight lines across the space. In the lounge, we've planned for a central TV, and you can see that it's ringed by bookshelves. And then on the other side of this, just out of view, would be built-in seating, which you can also see off in the distance here as well. On the ceiling, we have the wood plank ceiling that I mentioned before. And then there's actually an existing area of lowered ceiling that we need to plan around. And we're incorporating a cove light in this light fixture along the perimeter of that just to add some nice uplight to the space. It is quite bright facing Rosemary Street, all those windows with the sloping ceiling. And we've incorporated an element that's still very much in design, but an idea that there's a kind of a screen that is lightweight that allows a lot of natural light to pass through it, but also helps kind of modulate the light in that space. Um, Here are some examples of what it might look like on other projects. This is not what it will look like here, but this idea that we can include openings in it so that we filter the light through that space and also give a little bit of a sense of enclosure between the lounge space and then the group work study that's just on the other side of that. And again, that's something that we're still very actively designing, and we'll be coming back to you to show more images of what we're actually proposing here. In terms of the materials in the lounges, the shelving will be all metal shelving, similar to what you have now in the library, but a different color. And then the shelf surrounds will be a mixture of natural wood veneer and some painted areas as well. We can kind of go through that if you have questions about it. And then cabinet faces will be wood veneer as well. We're also looking in some cases at a perforated wood veneer with some fabric behind it for additional acoustic benefits in certain areas.
Right,
Here,
before you move on, before
yeah,
you move on to the question, if you go back to like the main design.
this one?
Yeah, that one, thank you. Has there been any thought or discussion of having that set of shelves be higher? So I'm not sure what people are going to use that TV for, but you can see, based on the way that looks, you can see the TV from outside the space, or unless there are walls on the other side. I thought they were glass. So I'm wondering if there's any thought to having more blocking of that TV for privacy reasons or whatever from the outside of the teen space.
That's a great question, and maybe I'll also let Rob lend his thoughts to it. We've talked a bit about the fine-tuning the height of the shelves in this location and the other shelving so that there are good sight lines. This is that first view that you see when you walk into the teen space, and we think that it's important to be able to see all of the different offerings that are available in this space. So to see the lounge, to see the group work study area, and then see beyond to the quiet study room. And then just off to the right would be that craft room. But I think you're making a good point about that TV maybe being visible even beyond the teen space.
I wonder if we can either A, have higher shelves, or B, just be on one of the other walls in there somehow. Just so it's not facing out into the rest of the library space. I don't know if that's necessary. I think it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I think we should talk about that, Brett, at our next meeting with Erin too. What we were mainly concerned about were staff sight lines within the space, but also from outside of the space when we don't have staff in it. So that was our primary concern, and we didn't think of what you just talked about. Well, we staff didn't. I don't know if the professionals did, but yeah. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and it might be fine. As I said, I think it's just something to bring up.
I don't know how visible it will be from anything but like the art gallery wall. I'm trying to picture it where it sits within the library now. I don't think it would be visible from down the nonfiction stacks. And
might be from some of those tables. I don't know if some of those tables are just staying up there and stuff like that. What's that?
On the side.
On the side, exactly, yeah.
And is this something that we would imagine that teens would be in there, like watching movies after school? Is that kind of the
Possibly.
likely, you know, is it likely to be going a lot of the time, I guess?
Is it a structured, or is the TV there for a structured activity? Or is it just random?
Like you kids bring in their like
Probably
PS5s
both.
and plug it in.
Right, the craft room will be more for gaming, you know, we'll have gaming systems where that space can be used for gaming.
Okay.
This wouldn't be a primary location for that, but, you know, we won't have cable TV or streaming services here, or
We'll be
the
watching
internet.
sports.
It would be sort of structured movie screenings.
So what would be the
that we
format
do.
that they would be watching, if not cable? What would it be?
Streaming services.
DVDs.
DVDs?
Oh,
I mean, I just question that, because you're talking about planning a forward-looking space with a relatively dead format.
Right, so we'd have to look in the future, if it's smart TV, if there's a way to, we have to look at the security of the technology. We're not going to subscribe to.
streaming services.
I just
Well,
have,
Canopy.
I just have
Like,
questions,
if
I
we
just have
could
questions at this
do that.
point about coming up with a DVD based.
I think that's a good point, Jay, but I think we could have that conversation separate from this, that we
Yeah,
could
that's
install
fine.
various
Okay.
TVs and electronics in that space.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could maybe move forward with the design questions.
Yep.
The important thing, and it's good to hear this from Rob, is that it's not just going to be tuned into cable. It's not going to be the Cartoon Network or whatever it is on, you know, during library hours always, because that would probably be a bit more distracting if you could see that from other spaces all the time.
Which way does that screen face out? Would it be?
It faces out towards the stairs.
Right.
Toward the art gallery.
Like if you're coming up the stairs, you can look in and see that TV.
Yeah. If you are at the top of the stairs, you'd be able to look across
Okay.
and see that TV. Why don't I just keep moving, just in the interest of time and your agenda tonight. Let's see, we were up to here. Okay, so this is a view of the new group study area underneath the sloped ceiling. Rosemary is off to the left. The new quiet study room is straight ahead of us. This is a mixture of loose furniture that we're planning over here on the left. And what we're considering right now is built-in furniture off to the right, although PPBC has charged us with taking a closer look at that. We primarily had planned built-in furniture to allow us to have potentially some storage underneath the seating, but especially connectivity for electronic devices, having power outlets built into that bankhead, to the bench off to the right. But it's something that we're going to be taking a closer look at. Obviously, built-in custom millwork is more expensive generally than off-the-shelf furniture, even when it's a custom size to fit in the space. So that's one thing that we've been charged with taking a look at. And then Off to the right is a placeholder for now, but that's a screen that kind of gives that divider between this group study area and the lounge off to the right.
Yeah, I did want to weigh in on that, which it came up yesterday talking about the furniture, and it does make sense to me that we have access to power, but maybe those can just be floor outlets rather than be built into furniture with millwork.
So Gerhard, that's a good question. And generally, if this were new construction, I would absolutely agree with you. Given that we're in a renovation, we need to be very careful with the floor boxes if they're new, because right above the ceiling where most of the trustees are sitting right now is this space. And we want to avoid having to put holes in the ceiling to reroute electrical conduit and the like. But Rob and his team have very graciously identified all of the existing floor outlets in the space and we're looking to reuse as many of those as we possibly can.
Great.
Is there also something to make that space less bright as well? Because in the summer, that looks like it's gonna be very, very warm.
Yes, and so there is some existing shades along that side of the building that we'll be reusing. As are, and a good segue into this next space, which is the quiet room, there are some existing shades in here that we'll be reusing, but we know from experience in the library that that's just not enough. That when you create a greenhouse facing to the south and west, you get a very warm, very bright space. And we want to try to mitigate that. And that's one thing that you all mentioned to us, even from the beginning during the feasibility study, as something to work on. So what we're proposing here is to create a wood screen that goes along the south and western edges of this wall. One that is going to be oriented so that we preserve a lot of the beautiful natural light in that space, but we help mitigate a lot of the troublesome glare that's in there, especially later in the afternoon in the summer months when the sun, when the days are quite long and the sun is really blaring into that space. And you can see that that goes floor to ceiling in here. As I mentioned, again, the roller shades will stay, and there will be times of day where we just have to lower the shades because that when you're facing west, that's what you need to do. But we have added little cutouts at each of these individual carrels so that when you're sitting here, you get a nice unobstructed view through that space. And we think it's just like a really nice little design feature to add into this space to give it a little bit of personality and give each one of those carrels a kind of unique position in the library to be able to face off to the west and have a lot of natural light, but still keep that nice view. I think one benefit of making this out of wood is that when the sun is shining and it reflects off of the wood screen, it's just going to make that space really a beautiful, golden, warm space. I think it's going to be the most popular place in the library once we're done.
It looks quite beautiful and creative.
Wonderful, thank you. And here's just a few examples of other libraries that have taken advantage of wood screens to have those types of effects. And we'll be, we're going to keep refining a lot of those details in that space to give it that really unique kind of warm touch that is missing from it right now. In terms of some of the materials there, we're thinking about wood, as I said, for the screen, but also looking at wood materials potentially for some of those desktops for the furniture and for the built-in carrels in that space. We have done some computer glare studies. These are maybe a little wonky, a little hard to read, but essentially we build a 3D model of this space. We look at it through our software, and this is a floor plan of the space. This is your existing condition right now, and without going into too much detail, everywhere where you see red, that's bad. And this is your existing condition. So this is, kind of proves out what you already know, that it is very disturbing amounts of glare and natural light in that space existing. And here's what it looks like with the new wood screen. So everything where you see yellow, that's much better. It's better performing. You're getting good natural light. And the only areas where you have very troublesome glare is like right up against the edge of the glass where nobody's actually going to be occupied. Nobody will have their face pressed against the glass. So this helps us just prove out our instincts as designers that the wood screen is going to be helpful, this kind of in a quantitative way helps verify that it's actually doing the job that we want it to do.
Does it also lower the temperature of the room?
So because the only way to really deal with the temperature in that space, and we touched on this very briefly during schematic design, would be to add something external to the glass. You essentially need to shade the glass before the energy hits it. And that's just not really in the budget for this project. And so what we've landed on is a combination of making the space more comfortable visually, and then also upgrading the heating system or the cooling system in that space. So we're going to replace the air conditioning unit that serves that space with something new. It's also going to be larger, something that's appropriately sized for the size of the space, the amount of glass, and the exposure, the south and west exposure for that space. And that's included in our cost estimate now.
Thank you.
And then just touching a little bit on the furniture, we've started looking at different furniture types with Rob and his team. We have more work to do. We also intend on having some furniture pieces be brought to the library so that the library staff, potentially patrons, and of course you as trustees will be able to sit test some of these and make sure that they feel comfortable that they are the right shape and size and materials for the library. Just to give you a quick snippet, because I see I'm already running over my allotted time, we're talking about some of the banquette bench seating that we talked about in the group work study or group work area here. Some more pod-like furniture in the quiet study area for individual work, more robust kind of cafe tables and tables on casters in the craft area. And then in the lounge zone, having some more soft furniture that's more reflective of a kind of living room type of space.
May I ask a question on that? And this would be sort of for library staff, whether they feel like with teens, is upholstered furniture kind of in danger of teens, poking pens and puncturing things? And is that a concern?
No, it really isn't. They don't do that. What is more likely is that stuff will wear out because there's going to be a lot of people sitting in them.
Yeah. Okay.
That's pretty much what seems to be wearing out is the chair rests, the chairs. And of course, kids will put their feet up on anything they can find.
Yeah. Okay. So just more of a wear and tear thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll be specifying the most durable fabric we can get that is still comfortable to sit on. We don't want to sit on Kevlar, but to a certain extent, wear and tear is absolutely going to happen, and it will be an indication of popularity and use as you get more wear and tear on it, as long as we're providing the right fabrics to protect from stains and spills and that sort of thing to make it easily maintained.
Brett, are the cafe tables stationary? Are they like drilled into the ground, or will they be able to be moved?
They'll be able to be movable. What we're planning in this zone, in the craft area, as well as the group work area, is a thought that some of these can be pulled apart if they want individual study, or they can be pushed together if kids are working in a group. We want to be able to give that flexibility.
Thank you.
And then this is just stepping back. Maybe this is the image I should have started with instead of ended with, but this is the view from outside of the space. This is the staircase down to the Rosemary entrance. And so we're kind of looking across in this area. There's a lot of reflection, so it's a little bit hard to see, but that TV will be located right here, if you can see the red dot. And one thing that we're planning along this wall is we want to be thoughtful about future phases of the work and make sure that whatever we do as part of phase one doesn't preclude, but it actually in a way enables future phases of the work. And so what we're showing is a full height wall here. We can put some shelving in here as in the interim timing between phases. And then there was some thought about future use in here, maybe some additional meeting rooms or other activities that we can think about in future phases of the work. I'm going to really quickly run through project schedule and the costs, and then maybe I'll stop there and let more questions come my way. So again, here we are. We're just finishing design development. As I said, that's the second of three major design phases for us, construction documents being the final phase before we go out to bid and construction. We are here at the end of that phase. We'll be moving into our construction documents next. There's one more cost estimate that we will be doing in February. And the goal is to prepare bid documents for March so that we can have bids in hand ahead of town meeting in May. One item that we talked about both last night and with Rob and the team is to think a little bit about schedule. We don't want to compete with summer slammers for school projects, summer being extremely busy and very competitive. So we've talked a little bit about potentially in the construction schedule, allowing contractors to bid in the spring, but start construction at the end of August, potentially when school goes back into session. We hear also that summer is the busiest month in the library, so that might be preferential. And then to allow the construction schedule to extend a little bit past the new year so that there's adequate time to build the project. I think we want to just be very realistic about the number of bids that we will be able to attract with the construction project. And we want to make sure that we have competitive bids so we're not locked into paying too much for this particular project. And I'll let Hank add some more to that too if he wants. But I'll pull this and the next slide up. This is where we landed with, oops, that says schematic design, excuse me, that should say design development cost estimate. There's two estimates that were performed, one for a cost estimator that's our consultant, another that is a cost estimator as consultant to the town. They were quite close together. They're about $35,000 apart. We strike the midpoint to find the budget, which is $1,825,001. I think that dollar is important. And that plugs into the overall project cost, the total project cost that the town has. That number is up here with the construction cost of 1.8 million. There's an owner's contingency that's added to that. There is a furniture and shelving allowance. We have received more information about furniture and shelving that's allowed us to actually comfortably reduce this number a bit. There's an equipment allowance, and then moving costs, soft costs to pay for architects and engineers and project managers. All of that feeds into a total project cost right now of $2.96 million, which is 220,000 over the feasibility. Hank, do you want to jump in here and go through any of the remaining items?
Only to say that after the feasibility study, we knew that there was a delay from when your cost estimate was done during feasibility. And so the cost escalation was integrated into the overall budget moving forward. The current request at the bottom for May town meeting is 2.386 million. And that would supplement then the 554,000 already appropriated a year ago in April.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble. I can't see the numbers, but I'm just looking for assurance that the amount that we're asking for at town meeting is sufficient to cover the budget that we're being shown now.
Well, that's where note 1 comes in. And there's been discussion about some supplement.
Can't read it.
Yeah, we can't see these figures, though.
Can you zoom in on? I guess you can't.
I should be able to zoom in a bit here if everybody bears with me. I don't know, maybe that's too zoomed in for everybody. Sorry.
That's very zoomed.
Maybe that's a little bit more helpful.
just not sure the answer to the question.
It's just not.
So what do we do about that?
So there's $120,000 here, so this is where we'll be talking to our friends in the foundation.
For 100, so
Friends,
for 120, that's now that's the tentative number that we're looking for from the, as,
from the
com-
two
got it. As compared to, it's too late to make an adjustment to what we request at town meeting?
Well, from the original capital improvement plan, about a year ago, we were at 2.286 million. So we've already upped that to 2.386. Ultimately, the question comes back to the issue of, will we get competition on the bids? And if we wanted to be, right now, we're carrying that contingency of 15%, which is about $250,000. I think that that's sufficient on a project like this. Actually, 270,000.
But that's 100, I'm sorry. I was gonna just say though, just so I'm clear, that 120,000 sort of shortfall, that just covers the potential costs for this project. But to the extent that we were looking for support from the foundation for ancillary things, that would be above and beyond asking for the 120, right?
Well, this 120 would be needed if the entire contingency budget of 273,000 was used. And we're shifting the project to start in late August in order to get more bids and to
Okay,
have
no.
a lower. So
Okay.
these strategies are in place to make the 120 unnecessary.
Reduced. Got it. Okay.
But at this point,
So this total 2.9 whatever is what we're considering a worst case scenario, that we don't get good bids, and there's that 15% that's built in as in case the bids aren't there or whatever, but hoping to not use that 15%. Is that correct?
Correct. And inevitably in any renovation, there will be some surprises. And so we would want to maintain some contingency during the construction. But the FF&E can lag behind a little bit in terms of ordering, not too far behind, because we want to make sure that it can be available and installed when it reopens. But that's also why we want bids in hand prior to town meeting in case there's a huge whoops.
Is there a concern that there won't be bidders or won't be enough bidders?
I think we're concerned that the market is still pretty hot. And this is not a large project. So we will be looking to a certain size company where this is right in their wheelhouse. So it's that makes it a bit more of an unknown. And I'm sure Util has worked with other local contractors. The contractor that we worked with most recently at Emery Grover would probably not be interested in this project because it's too small for them. But there are several other companies that we've worked with on other projects where this would be just the right size for them.
Yeah, I think in terms of the schedule, we just want to position the project so that we get the most number of competitive bids to ensure that we preserve things like the contingency, we preserve the allowance for the furniture, and that doesn't get eaten up because just one bidder threw a dart at the board in terms of the construction cost. And for them, it's a high enough number. If they get it, it's great. If they don't, no worries, because they're busy with other things. We just want to make sure that this project's position for contractors coming off of that summer work, looking for something good to transition to. This project will be ready. They can come full swing as soon as the summer project is done and move right into the library to continue on, keep all of their staff busy.
And our current, just so, since it's a little hard to read here, so is there a current estimate or guesstimate as to what the request to town meeting will be? Is that, did we say 2.38?
We know that.
2.38,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, and the amount of summer work that occurs in schools across Massachusetts, both public and private, is quite extensive. So we're hoping that having that flexibility in the schedule will allow them to do their submittals and paperwork and other things over the summer, and then transition their workforces to this job after the summer. It might also enable them to pre-manufacture some of the wood screening and some of the other built-in furniture, and get portions of the work done outside of in various studios away from the building, and then it's brought in once the demolition and reconstruction is completed. But ultimately, we don't control the market, and we can certainly discuss with town manager about additional funding. Oftentimes they don't know exactly how much potential funding there will be until the free cash is settled.
And certainly because we're doing a multi-stage build here, with a number of things that we're hoping the town will back us on. We want to come in, hopefully, responsibly on this one, and not be asking for more, so that we feel like they will have their support going forward as we ask for the next stages. So thank you. This has been really helpful as an update.
Very impressed. Thank you.
Yes, it looks like you've got some really creative, interesting design work going, and yeah, very impressive.
Lots of choices to be made.
Many choices.
Good luck.
Brett, can you send a version of that slide deck to Rob to distribute to the trustees so we have that on file afterwards?
Absolutely. I'll do it right now, Erhard. Thanks everybody for your time tonight. We're really
Thank
excited
you.
about the project. We think it looks great too, and can't wait to see it built.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Hank. Thank you.
All right. So we're
Can I
running
ask one-
behind.
I just ask one other little question relating to that.
Sure.
If we're doing the construction in the fall, when the teens won't have access to the library, are we gonna be finding an alternative location for them to go, or they'll just have to make do without having a space for however many months?
Go home to their parents. Stay tuned.
Okay.
We have to
We'll figure it
discuss
out, right?
Yeah, but we have, for the collection, we will use, I think I can say it, the Bosworth room for some of the teen fiction collection. And turn that into a mini teen space
Oh, okay. So
during the project.
Okay.
But it won't be enough, but
got it.
we're still
That
thinking
makes
of other
sense.
stuff.
Rob, I'm going to ask you to try and do the 10-minute version of your director's report, so that we can move to policies, since we have a lot of that on our agenda tonight.
There was like. Some of the highlights, the children's department in last month had this great Thanksgiving book cafe, which you can read here, where they served appetizers, main courses, and desserts all around books and reading. It was quite fun. Ellie had a fantastic story time. There were 80 people, the most he's ever had. He's great if everyone is just stop in and listen to one of the story times. It's very engaging.
Is there a regular time for that?
Wednesday mornings
Tomorrow
in
morning?
this one. Yes, it's great.
What time?
Oh.
I want
10
to.
o'clock.
10 o'clock, okay.
thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, terrific toddlers.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it's not tomorrow morning because it's the only, he does not get the second Wednesday. I've got 2 groups that come in on that day. But he will be here the 18th.
The next 2 bullets are just fun, engaging stories I wanted to share with you about kids and people loving our library. The last bullet on the first page, Lucia does an incredible job, and in November she brought in 11 outside groups to do programming for us for free.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You should be very proud of Lucia. She's great. Moving on to page 2, reference department. I just want to note in a few of these bullets, Jackie, Gay Ellen, and Erin all note that they are proud that everybody in their department has stepped up to support each other during this time when they had no reference supervisor. So I just wanted to call that out to
And
let
we
you know
want to thank the
that.
staff
you.
for that. They have been brilliant, including Jay, sitting right here with all the reference staff.
And then on a different note, the last bullet, I just want to share with you just some of that reality. I don't want everything to be all rosy in my report, but sometimes reality. And so, you know, this fall we're experiencing some reality, some patrons who are not as nice.
Not the same ones over and over, or like variety.
It's more than
Yeah.
our usual.
Really.
But if people behave in a way that's against our appropriate behavior policy, we deal with that. A lot of this doesn't rise to the level of breaking our policy, but is not fun
Mhm.
or nice behavior.
I'm just curious what an example of that.
People are just talking like wanting stuff, you know,
Just pushy.
exactly, not
Uh-huh.
appreciative or
Uh-huh.
whatnot, or you know, comments like no one here knows how to do anything, or you know, just like no grace.
Yeah.
You know, no
I guess,
benefit of the
and as the
doubt.
library, you can't just tell them to get lost. huh?
Exactly. So you know, when we talk about library staff and stress, that's just sort of an example of sort of
Yeah.
some of the small daily stresses that we experience. Moving on to technical services department, the second bullet, the overhauling of the library things is pretty exciting. So we've added 38 new items to the collection. We've added more space to the collection, rebranded the collection, and done some relabeling so the storage is easier for our circulation staff. And in end of December, beginning of January, we're launching the new and revised library things with more marketing about that and
Great.
what we've added. So we're looking forward to that.
And we took out the coin sorter and it worked great.
Excellent, great to hear. Technology Archives Department, the first bullet, this is part of our action plan. So Danielle has created an inventory of what we have in our archives, and we'll reach out to the Needham History Center Museum to see if they can develop a similar list so that we can share that information among our institutions, between our institutions, so we know how to direct people who come here looking for information on Needham's history. The third bullet, on Thursday of this week, the IT department is replacing our phone system, which is wonderful. So we're excited about that. They came and did some preparatory work the end of last week. So our phones, not all our phones may be working on Thursday all at the same time as they get switched out. So thanks to Danielle for really doing a lot of work with the IT department there. On the personnel section, I just wanted to let you know that 7 staff members have applied for conference scholarships from Mass Library System to attend library conferences between February and August of next year. Also, Jackie Bateman from our reference department will be attending Live Learn X, which is an ALA library conference in Phoenix at the end of January. So she's really excited about that. They have 7 sessions that are just about AI and AI in libraries. And Jackie's become our in-house expert on AI. So really excited for her to bring back lots of knowledge on that. As in emails, I'll let you know that Diana Fendler is joining us next month as our assistant director. We're super excited about that and for you to meet her when she joins us. And then Liam O'Keefe is joining us next month as a reference supervisor. He comes to us from the Somerville Public Library. And we're also quite impressed with his background.
Yeah, that's very good news.
Yes, yes. So the reference program now has a regular weekly schedule, which includes the weekend rotation. And so when we did that, we realized we didn't need to hire a 5th part-time person to work on the weekends. So we had advertised that position. And so we reached out to those candidates we were interested in and asked them if they come in to interview to be on a sub list for the reference department. And so we're interviewing 3 of them to see if we'll have on a sub list, because with only 4 part-time people, it's hard to fill a weekend shift. So if we have a list of subs that we can call, it'll be easier for us to.
And that's a good way for them to get a foot in the door and for us to meet them in case anything opens up down the road.
And so Town Hall and HR has been very supportive in letting us or talking to us about doing this and adding this to our strategies to keep the library running. And we're interviewing this week for the part-time children's reference librarian. We had 1 interview today. We have 1 on Wednesday, 1 on Thursday, 1 on Friday. So hopefully we'll get a good person. There's a list of things here, meetings I've attended to. And then on phase 1, Jenna, Erin, and I went on a fun field trip to the South Shore to visit 2 libraries that opened in the past 4 years or so, and got to see a lot of great furniture and talk to staff, and that was a fun adventure.
Any particular library that you thought was kind of wow or particularly interesting?
Jenna?
Oh, well, they were both really different. You can be biased.
You enjoyed the Weymouth Library?
They knew what they were doing.
I'd been to the Weymouth Library before, so it was fun to have a tour from a different perspective. But I will say that the Norwell Library had that gorgeous porch that I just like, where it was situated in nature. It was just, I loved it. It was just great. I want that for myself. I don't even, not even for the library. I just want to sit there myself. Yeah. But no, they were both really awesome.
Noah was quite special. So buildings and grounds, our building maintenance crew have been busy this fall, and some items that they've done and some items coming up, including painting study run 3 during school vacation week this month. So we'll be glad to have that done. Moving on to financial reports. The first one is our operating budget. And if you turn to that, you'll see the percent expended for this time sort of is in line with where we are in the fiscal year. So there's not much to report there. Our salary spending continues to be a little bit behind just because of the openings we've had. So that's to be expected. Moving on to state aid, you see the list of 4 expenses we have this month that we're sharing with trustees. That comes out of the monies that was encumbered this summer for our plan for spending for FY25. So we're on track there. The next report, the trust funds, we have a lot of activity there as we move to finish up that spending. And that's also based on the plan we presented to trustees this summer. So that is on track. And then the statistical report for the library, a couple of things that stand out to me. The website hits are up incredibly for this fiscal
Yeah.
year, over 76,000 more hits than last year. So it just goes to show the importance of our website. And so we hope the town agrees to move that annual maintenance fee into our operating budget.
Yeah, it's become very crucial and integral to the library's
Yes,
daily
yeah.
operations.
So that's great. Study room turnaways, you can see the huge increase from October of last year, 1,700 turnaways.
Yeah,
So,
so
um,
I was wondering about that. Why?
So
such a
last
huge increase?
October was our system of calling into the library to make a reservation, and now we have the online system after that. So it's just a sign of the ease now for people to make a reservation, and also the popularity of the 3 study rooms. So that's an issue we really want to talk about as we work on phases 3 and 4.
Is there a trick, the time of day when people should call in order to?
Actually, you don't call.
I meant online though.
Online,
But is there
Midnight,
like
after
midnight? That would be
Gives
the.
you the day after, so to speak.
So like midnight Wednesdays for Friday.
You got it.
Set your alarms, people.
Well, actually, no, it's for Thursday.
Midnight Wednesdays for Thursday.
Midnight Wednesday.
Yeah, but midnight Wednesday is midnight Tuesday.
No, actually, it does go to Friday. Yeah, I have to think about it.
So like 4 hours from now, you'd be able to book for Friday.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I actually called in
I don't know.
on
Sometimes-
Sunday for a Sunday room and I got it,
Sometimes you do.
Oh.
I
but
will
it
tell
fills
you
up
that
fast.
we do not have the ability to shift around like we used to. So there may be 15-minute or half-hour gaps, and we have no way of moving things around to get rid of the gaps.
Mhm.
But for the most part, everything pretty much fully books quickly.
So study rooms, we'll be talking about this the revised study room policy in a few minutes. Also, I just want to point out the pages printed, huge increase there. In October, we started the pilot project of not charging for printing at all. So you see a healthy increase there. And we will finish that pilot project at the end of this month and review the data from that and decide whether to continue that or to shift that. So that's the statistics, and then going back to the DI information. Listed here for reference, children's technology and is the materials purchased as well as programming and staff actions for November. I just want to mention Danielle with technology. She's attended 3 customer service mental health webinars by Niche Academy. This sort of relates to the note you saw that Jackie had about some patrons. So how to back up coworkers, repeat offenders, and how to get someone to leave safely. So these webinars she's also shared with staff. So we're going to start to talk about this issue with our staff about how to think through strategies or techniques to support each other or to end discussions that in a professional manner that are not necessary and a little stressful. And then the charts here, the DIV chart that shows the occurrences of those issues in the 175 items we added to our collection in November. And then the new item summary report, I just want to show you that we are continuing to move through the sections of the collection to read. And we've started some work in the children's department on that with the DVDs and the CDs. But I did a lot of great work in November for the teen collection. So that is good. So we'll be all set to for phase 1 in the spring to pack up and move that collection around the library.
Ready for the gift list?
Yes. So moving on, the new business, the action item is the gift list. So we have gifts listed here, including a very generous $5,000 donation from Anne McFate for the
Very
trust
generous.
for the
Yes.
visually impaired.
Thank you to Anne once again.
So we're very appreciative of that donation. So those are presented for the trustees to vote to accept them tonight.
So looking for a motion to accept the gifts as listed here under new business in our agenda for the permanent donation fund, $10 from Mariana Radoslavova Mikhailova, $30 from Peng Shen, $100 from Chris Brand, and $100 from Joan Onofre. For the Anne McFate Fund for the Visually Impaired, $5,000 from Anne McFate. From Hunlong Dai, 2 copies of The Borderline by Annie Dai, estimated value $36.
I move to accept the gifts and to thank our donors. For their
Second.
generosity.
Great. I will start a roll call vote to accept. Please say aye. Kay Cahill.
Aye.
Rob Pettit.
Aye.
Jay Fialkov.
Aye.
Michael O'Neill.
Aye.
Megan Small.
Aye.
Joshua Small.
Aye.
And me, Erhard Grafe. I'm aye. So we unanimously accept those gifts. Thank you for all of the donations. Next item of new business. I think it makes sense to talk about the process for the library policy review at this juncture, because we're about to move into discussing the policies. And we have, thanks to Kay and Rob McLean, this proposal for how we should kind of go about reviewing these together with the staff and as a bunch of interested parties. And so Kay and Rob, do you want to kind of present that that's sitting there on that document?
Yes, so at the bottom of the lawn signs policy revision, there's a policy review process of bullets of a process that Kay and I thought would work as we tackle this big project over the next 2 years. So it begins with library staff just meeting to discuss and revise existing policies, or meeting to discuss, research, and write new policies, and moves through in a very incremental way towards a final draft presentation at a second trustees meeting. I don't know if you want me to read each bullet.
We've read
but
them, I think, right?
The intent here is for trustees to be full participants in this whole review process, to make sure that what we do is informed by trustee input, so that we get the best policies possible.
And I also want to remind folks that, one of the things that we've talked about in past years is the need to make sure that trustees are working through Rob when it comes to engaging with the library staff around any of this work. And so having a more structured process in which Rob and Kay are helping facilitate that work means that we aren't reaching out directly to library staff and asking for meetings or for their comment on things. All of that should be going through Rob.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if a trustee is has an interest in a particular policy, certainly go through Rob and or me, or both of us at the same time, and I would, we would both go through Rob, is what I'm saying, and Rob will look me in, right?
Right. Or at the last meeting, Rob, the other Rob,
Yes.
said he was interested in the community information policy. So Kay and I reached out to him last week and got input that informed that revision that's here tonight. But yeah.
Good, yeah.
That makes sense.
Any other questions or comments from trustees on this review process? Great. This doesn't require. Oh, great, Michael. Yes, please ask.
I was just saying, because maybe I overstepped by not going to Rob first, by just talking with Aaron. That was not a correct thing, because we haven't done anything, but we were I was just trying to get an idea of to include someone who is actually on staff, just to get ideas. Is that okay, or should I deal with you first?
If deal with me first. I can just coordinate that.
Okay,
I hadn't spoken to Erin about,
right,
right, creating the team room policy, so.
right.
You know, I don't think she was prepared for, you know, I just want to make sure our staff know where we're all, what we're doing,
Okay,
you know.
okay,
Well, and it also sounds like the staff, and as it says in the first bullet, are writing the policies. So we're just giving input and suggestions into it, and the staff will, then in a de novo plan, will create the first draft. And then the person who's interested will review it and comment.
Or even leading up to that, if people have your research they want to share, or just meet with you and talk and stuff, and so that can inform our work too. Sort of the first bullet may not just be a one and done at the beginning. You know, we may go
Right.
have several meetings depending on like a team room policy or other ones that we're creating out of thin air. We may have more than one staff meeting, but you know, always, you know, I'm always available for meetings or whatnot.
And I think, Megan, you expressed at one point an interest in children's room
Yeah.
policy, so you don't have to wait until, you know, that whole process happens and it's handed to us in the packet. You can step, you know, when that, you can be looped in if you have input to give, you know, just do it through Rob, and, you know, you can read the policy, right? And she could give input to Rob as it's being reviewed, as opposed to, you know, have to wait.
So the second bullet could also be the first bullet plus the second bullet plus,
Yeah, I
you know,
guess
it could
that's
be
where I
like,
was a little confused, as to
Yeah.
sort of like.
but
do
like
we need to
whenever
wait for your
trustees want
research?
to,
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I would encourage trustees that are interested in particular topics to do that research and reach out to Rob, and share some of their thoughts on, you know, what they think is important to consider, as we redraft these policies.
I did see somewhere that I'm presenting in January on this. Is that- is
I saw that
There
too.
was something in the
set-
minutes.
Yeah, in the minutes that maybe we'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, me too. I am
There's-
too, Maggie.
There's a couple
Look.
holidays between then and
Yes, I
now, so
know.
I need to keep that in mind. Okay, we can sort that out.
But thank you for that clarity, because I didn't want to, I wasn't aware of just this part, just right here, that I was under more of an assumption that we had to come up with something, but also with that in mind is why I approached it that way, because it wasn't really clear that this is the kind of progression that it should take.
Yeah.
So I apologize, and I hope I didn't get Aaron in trouble.
no, not at all, no. I think everybody lives in my head and knows what I think all the time, so I think that was part of the issue where I wasn't clear myself. But there's no harm, no foul, and I still want you and all trustees to be
Right.
involved, you know. I just want to be in the loop, so, you know, staff aren't surprised or what
Right.
have you, just so.
That's
I can
consistent with
follow-
what we've always
See, I
understood
was-
also.
I was thinking
Yeah.
that more the way that it was maybe said is that we have to come up with something.
That
But
was
now
on-
hearing this, that you guys are gonna come up with, and we will find some, not necessarily we're gonna fine tune it, but we will make inferences to, what do you think about this, that kind of a thing.
And it can be a two-way street because, you know, we have access to lots of the research and share things out with you, like existing policies from the libraries that, you know, are of interest to us or whatnot, and get your take on them. So, you know, but if you find things you want to share or meet about. Yeah,
And so the
two-way
team
street.
policy, we don't have a team policy now, right? So
Right.
that's gonna be an all new thing. So you
It'll
don't
be-
have a team policy to look at if you're interested.
It'll be
That's what I
a-
was finding
more
out.
of a teen room policy.
Yeah.
So
Teen
it
room
won't
policy.
be, we still have our appropriate behavior policy, so it
Right.
won't be about behavior, but it'll be about the teen room and a policy about its use.
The behavior policy, is that posted somewhere, and just in terms of thinking about the people who are giving trouble, is there some sort of posted air thing that
So
tells people to be nice?
there's a couple of things. So all our policies are on our website, which is one thing.
Yeah.
But also the town develops, I don't know what it's called, but we have posted in the library a list of expectations that the town of Needham developed for how employees should be treated, which is around the library and prominent positions.
It should be wherever they're giving you trouble, that's where it should be posted.
We will put a placard on every staff member. No, I don't want to.
Okay.
It's not like a crisis or
Okay.
anything,
Yeah.
but like it does come up, and I just want to share what's and all with you, not
Yeah,
just all the happy stuff.
We appreciate that.
But we don't have a crisis here.
All right, so I think we need to keep moving so that we can start talking about the policies. So as we shift to looking at old business, I want to remind us that we're trying to approach these discussions about policy a little more formally during these meetings than we normally conduct our meetings. For a couple of reasons. One, this is a public record, so it's important that we address the whole room, not have side conversations, try not to talk over one another as we're deliberating these policies. I'll also say that for today, since we are reviewing so many policies and only have so much time, I'm going to be stopping discussion at 15 minutes per policy. So if we get up to 15 minutes on a given policy, I'm going to ask that we table that and continue discussion at the next meeting. So I have a chance to review everything at least a little bit so that we have an opportunity to decide whether or not we want to vote next meeting. We can always restart discussions in future months. There's nothing that requires us to have a discussion and only one discussion at a single meeting and then vote the next meeting. Because I'm out of the room today, I'm going to lean extra hard on Rob and Kay to help facilitate these discussions. And so try and make sure that we have everybody weigh in if I can't see them, to call on them because we want to be inclusive as we're going around on this. So with that being said, let's return to the outdoor signage policy, which we discussed last time, and we will hopefully be ready to vote on today. Do you want to bring this back up, Kay and Rob?
Sure, yes. So with the input that we got last time, and we sat down with Rob and did some fairly minor tinkering to change the language to meet the needs. Essentially, it basically says that outdoor areas at the library only for advertising are only available to the library itself, including the trustees, the friends, and the library foundation at the discretion of the library director, who will have will make the judgment whether something is appropriate or not. And then if people have other things they want to post, there are indoor spaces that they can look into as well. That means pretty straightforward.
I have one comment on the policy. If I can.
Yeah.
I think you should get rid of the word only, because it means the same thing without the word. And when you have it, it suggests that the only thing you can do in the outdoor areas is post signs by these things, that you can't do anything. You can hang out in the outdoor areas. It's not only for the posting of signs. And I think it says the same thing without the only. It still says it's available for these specific purposes.
Other comments?
I mean, so I guess one procedural question, and Earhart, I don't know if you have the answer for this. If we make a minor change at this meeting, do we have to kick it to next month? Or can we make that change and approve it at this meeting?
I don't think there's anything that says that the text has to be finalized at the prior meeting, but I can bring up the bylaws very quickly and double check.
I think that since we don't have a motion on the table yet, we can do our, make changes now, and then once we're happy with it, we can have a motion and vote on that. I think that's okay to make changes now.
If I could suggest a change to address Jay's comment, is it, yeah, I mean, if you read it literally, then you couldn't enjoy a fine day outside if you weren't advertising an elephant event, although that could come in handy. If you move the word only, right now it's available only for signs, and put it after the word advertise. So it's available for signs and banners to advertise only programs, events.
Fine by me.
Agreed.
Agreed.
I agree.
Fine by me.
But otherwise, personally, I think this is nice, it's concise.
Yep.
not confusing.
So the language isn't super clear in Article 10 of the bylaws. It says all proposed new policies or revisions to existing policies shall be submitted in writing at the public meeting preceding the meeting where the new or revised policy is voted. That doesn't say that the final text
Right.
must be finalized in that meeting. It
agree.
just says that the proposed changes need to be introduced, essentially. So I think we're in good standing. If any of the lawyers want to disagree with me, I will entertain that right now.
I agree. I agree with you. I think it's logical
For
too.
de minimis changes, I think that makes sense. If we were changing the subject matter, then you'd probably want to submit it.
Okay.
Under
Yeah.
Robert's rules, it's a lesser change, which means yes, you can go ahead.
A lesser change.
Lesser change, yes.
Thanks.
I will say we will have some incompatibilities in our policies if we adopt this one, because our second paragraph in this policy will say, see the community information policy, which we are talking about changing the name to community information policy in the next ones we will be discussing. So we currently don't have a community information policy, is my understanding.
So current, one thought on that is to cross out where it says see community information policy, you can see other relevant policies or something like that for now,
We'll get rid of the note.
or get rid of the note.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to have that note there because it's only referring to outdoor.
Right.
But I'm not a lawyer.
So what do we call the community information policy right now? Is it the bulletin board policy?
Yeah, it's public use of bulletin board.
Well,
That is
A mouthful.
a name.
but the revised one does call it the community information
Yes.
policy.
But we're not,
Right.
that one hasn't been existing.
Yeah,
That one
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
exist yet.
We could also hold the approval until the
Next
community
month.
information is finalized, approved too at the same time. And if we want to keep the note in, then they will be effective
Yeah.
and solve the time.
Excellent thought. That might make sense.
I think that's a reasonable way to approach is we just table this to vote on once we have a community information policy in place and can refer to it formally in a new policy.
My sense is we're settled on the, at least informally on the lawn signs policy.
Yes. Any other any other substantive questions or concerns?
Just to note that on the community information policy, one of the outstanding questions on that revision was whether the name should be something else. So
Which
if
we
maybe,
could then amend, so more reason to hold it unless we want to strike the note altogether and enact the policy right away, I think is our two options.
Any preference? I mean, that means we wouldn't be voting tonight on the community.
No, we could because we haven't motioned yet. So we can always, if we table that discussion on this one, we can always come back to it, like
Sure.
in half an hour or something
That's
like
true.
Um,
I feel like we could approve this pretty quickly once we
Right,
settled the name issue for the community information policy.
So-
maybe just table-
That's my feeling as well. Yeah, I mean, once we, then you just amend this at that point.
So we've made notes of any language tweaks we want on this policy before
Yes,
we
there's
vote.
only the one, just one, the word only.
Okay. Great. Then let's table this for next meeting, and we will hopefully be able to vote on it. We'll make sure to order the votes such that we we vote on a community information policy before we vote on this one, so that those things all line up. So moving on, the next one on your list was the donation policy. Should we bring that up and discuss?
yes. So the first page is the existing gifts policy. The second page starts with reasons for revision, which was a suggestion Erhard had at the last meeting to help trustees understand why we want to revise a policy. So those reasons are listed here before the revised policy is presented to you. And so this, we're suggesting revisions for this policy for the sake of clarity, updating the amount to establish a named trust fund, adding an amount to delineate restricted versus unrestricted donations in order to ensure staff time and resources invested in implementation do not outweigh the value of the donation. And then last, strengthening language about library trustees' right to refuse a donation and of ownership of the donation upon acceptance and the ability to dispose of the donation. Part of that is what you'll see at the end of this is a deed of gift form, which is a suggested part of not so much the policy, but helping to, and not necessarily internal procedures, but a form that would be needed in the future.
Can I ask a question about the policy? The revised policy? The other substantive change I saw is that the new policy requires donations to be approved not only by the trustees, but also by the select board. And that was not part of the existing policy.
But that is part of
I think it
that's
is.
part of the
Yeah.
process.
It's part of the process.
Required.
It wasn't the other one too. No.
It wasn't the old one? I thought the old one said it.
All gifts must be reported to and accepted by the board, right at the very top. At the board of
Yeah,
select-
I see at the top. Got it.
So it's always been part of the.
Got it. Okay, because it down below, it just talks about the trustees approving the gifts, but got it, it's at the top. Fine.
Other questions or thoughts?
In the right of refusal and disposition, the last paragraph. Do we need to make reference to the select board there too? About the right to refuse?
It's in our sole discretion.
I think, well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we don't want it, then it
We
wouldn't
won't go to the select board.
That's the next step.
Got it,
but
okay.
We get the right to refuse.
Yeah.
Mhm. Just a little background on this too, is that we do, in the art committee, for example, we do periodically get artists who maybe have exhibited their work here, and this has definitely come up in my tenure. And then, because in one particular instance, the man was leaving the country and he exhibited his work in the cases here, and he was hoping, he wanted to donate to the library, his sculptural pieces, which were wonderful. However, we didn't really have a place for them or a use for them or a way to store them. So it didn't really make sense from the library's purposes to accept them. So I believe it was discussed at this meeting and we decided that we didn't want to accept them. So that's an example of why we need to have the right to refuse.
I think this is great, and I think it's much clearer, the whole policy. And so I really applaud the work in revising this. My one question is about whether the deed of gift form is part of the policy or not, right? Because I assume we're going to be posting this form with the policy. And the question is, when we approve the policy, are we adopting a specific deed of gift form such that any changes to that deed of gift form would need to be approved by the trustees in the future?
That's a really good point, Earhart, because if anything changes under Massachusetts law, which I can't imagine that it would, but it might be.
I think we could just say with the current gift form of the libraries, we could revise whatever, if we have reference to language to it. I would not include the form to policy unless somebody really, actually, no, I just wouldn't.
Yeah.
Can I ask a legal wording question? Under the right of refusal, this just reads funny to me, and it might be correct anyway. The library director and the board of trustees in their sole discretion, isn't it at their sole discretion, or does that not matter? It just reads funny to me. I don't know.
We usually say.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah, both ways.
Okay, that's fine. Again,
But I do have a question about the donation of services, which is that, does that not need to be accepted by the select board? Because it says that donation of services approved by the library director and the board of library trustees, but then we earlier say all donations shall be approved and be reported and need to be accepted by the Board of Selectmen.
Right.
Or the select board.
Well,
which-
doesn't that overarch it because it's previous paragraph?
We carried that language over from the existing gift policy.
It seems inconsistent, and it, just because it specifies and doesn't include the board, it seems intentional to leave out the select board. in
But it
that
doesn't,
third
but it
one.
doesn't, because under donations, like monetary donations, based on the recommendation of the library director, like, it doesn't say that we have to accept them, like, the
Right, but the
Board of
only
Trustees
thing
did.
we say about services
Mhm.
is shall be approved by the library director and the board of
Oh, I see what
library
you're saying.
trustees.
Yeah.
So it makes it seem like it's different, and
It
if
was like
it
that in the
doesn't,
old.
right, and if it doesn't need to be, then we could just fold it into a different section. Like,
What's
we have
the-
nothing else to say about services.
What is the source of the requirement for the Board of Selectmen to approve?
What is the source? I don't know. It's
Town
always been.
charter,
that way.
perhaps, I do not.
Town
Because,
charter.
because that might refer only to,
Material
material
items.
gifts. as
Yeah,
compared to
money and
services.
material
Monetary
items are what they approve.
Okay,
In which
That
case
is a
we
good
could
question.
with that structure differently and take the services out of that subsection or deal with it separately. In just one sentence would be really easy to, but
This is a good question. I mean, should we check back with the town lawyer on the services point? Because I'm noticing also that item is different than the previous two items, right? Where the A and B are referring to specific ways that those donations are handled, not about the approval of them. And the only thing underneath that item for donation of services is the way that they are approved.
right.
Is there an example of services that are donated to the library? Like,
The
volunteers.
Friends of the garden club decorates, puts decoration boxes with flowers in front of the.
Yes, Garden Club provides a arrangement every single week. They also provide the floral boxes in the front of the building. For that, they get their meeting space for free. So it's a donation of services. For
In kind.
and kind of-
And I don't
It's
think that
actually a
has, that
donation of
does
materials.
not go
Right.
to the select board. We don't ever,
Right.
forward that to the select board.
Perhaps, perhaps it makes sense to keep this as it is right now, so
Yeah.
that it's clear that donations of services are subject to this policy.
Right.
It doesn't seem like currently those would go to the select board, at least for de minimis volunteer type things, and perhaps that might not be the kind of thing that they would review anyway. But it's probably, in my opinion, it's probably good to have it in this policy so that there is some discretion there and it's purely defined.
You
And I'll-
don't see a problem with that, with the. Lap, obviously. It leads.
You say all donations of,
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing, and I think some folks are having some side
Yes.
conversations.
they're having
Yeah.
they're discussing
Sorry.
legal points of interest.
Yes, we were discussing the language and whether Rob was okay then with the potential overlap of the sentence right before the.
so at the bottom of the
Section.
introduction paragraph, right now it says all donations shall be reported to and accepted by the Board of Library Trustees and the Select Board. What if we said that all
Monetary?
tangible,
Or all mint material.
Yeah,
Tangible.
Well,
Monetary.
But
the
somebody.
flowers are tangible.
I mean, we could say monetary and material to follow the
Yeah.
format of the next, of 1, 2, 3, and then that clearly leaves out
Mhm.
services from that, and then it is further reinforced by the exclusion of the select board approval in 3A, provided that that is actually correct, which we should check with the town. No?
yeah, and I would, if we say material donations, people are gonna read it differently. A lawyer's gonna read it differently and think they're talking about materiality rather than materials.
Mhm.
Okay.
So you could say that, monetary donations, and material donations as set forth in paragraphs 1 and 2 below are subject to this process.
And paragraph 3 is therefore excluded.
Yes.
Yeah.
You said monetary and
And
material.
material, because of the, so we're copying the format that we have here. So you'd say monetary and material
Oh, I see.
donations as further described or
Yep.
as set forth in section 42.
So the only situation that I can imagine us getting into if I'm not a lawyer, but if I put on a scary lawyer hat, um, is to imagine that, like we accept somebody offers to sweep up the floors, on a weekend, in a particular area of the library. And the library trustees and so on further, and then they get injured, right? And then there's a chance of a claim of being injured while performing a service on site that the town is then liable for. That would put us in a weird situation. And so I am just curious if that's the type of thing we need to be thinking about here when it comes to a donation of service being accepted.
Doesn't the director have the opportunity to say yay or nay on that?
Yes.
I'm saying that the director approved it. They were like, yeah, thanks. Yeah, it'd be great if you could do that.
Those are examples of things where probably more even than the other, than the other gifts, the town would want to have approval of. It's almost like there's a special reason for the town to approve the gift of services, perhaps even more importantly, even than the other sorts of gifts. Based
Could
on
the
that
people-
scenario.
Couldn't the people planting flowers and stuff, somebody pokes himself while they're on or trip over?
In other words, you want to make sure that whatever insurance policies in effect would govern somebody who's.
Well,
They're doing landscaping in front of the library and they dig down into the tan bark and there's exposed rebar coming out of the concrete that's next to it, and they open up a wound or something. That can happen.
But wouldn't these people be performing as members of the public? And we have members of the public here all the time, and we must have a policy, a policy, but the town's insurance presumably has some coverage for members of the public that would apply to, like the garden club putting flowers in the flower boxes.
I don't know.
If you want a catch-all in paragraph 3 at the end of that, at the end of 3A, you say subject to applicable town policies.
So, okay.
It's kind of punting it, but that way, if the town has a policy, as it probably does, about getting waivers or other written acknowledgements from people who are volunteering and doing physical things on town property, then it would just automatically kind of get incorporated in here.
Yeah, like there's gonna be a policy in the school committee for like parents who are volunteering to give out pizza in the cafeteria or
Yeah.
something like that.
Gail and-
Yeah, I have a straight example in that I have artists that volunteer all the time to help paint the art in the gallery, and I tell them point blank, you are not covered if you fall off that ladder. Only the town employees are covered if you fall off. When it comes to that, it's workman's comp for us, but for a public, no, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
But an injury could happen doing virtually anything.
Yeah,
Um,
but for
so-
that particular.
But they're
stuff,
members
no.
of the public, they're here. I don't want to overly complicate this.
Would you go over that last piece you had just, hopefully, because it made a lot of sense.
So at the end of 3A, I would just add subject to applicable town policy or policies. Ultimately, any of these have to be approved by Rob as an agent of the town. So presumably, if there are policies about what can and can't be done on library property, then, Rob at his discretion would take that into account. We're not going to be familiar with town volunteering policies as much as board, but we have both board and library director approval.
And if you're not using a waiver for volunteers, you probably should be. That says that
That's
explicitly.
what that was saying to me, it's like, maybe we need to rethink that.
Just seems
So I
to
think
me-
that sounds like a reasonable addition. I don't know whether or not we need to confer with town council before next meeting, when looking to vote on this. Does anyone have thoughts on that?
Just on the 3A policy question, like the volunteer question, or the
Yeah.
sort of.
To Rob's not amendment, but the addition is subject to appropriate town policies. Because I think that at any given time, there's gonna be plenty of people, members of the public in this building, helping out, lending a hand in many ways, you know, I just feel like,
There's currently that woman who's helping to reshelve books, and the system is a volunteer, which Rob talks about in his director's
yeah,
report.
so I think they are covered by town policies and town insurance.
I think we're covered by adding the language subject to town policies, knowing that you should get an answer from the town and council before you decide whether to accept anyone's services. In other words, you can get that guidance after we adopt this policy. So that I don't think you would need to hold us up on adopting the policy with that change.
And I'm
And
curious,
then, oh, go ahead.
curious if we've ever sent it to the Board of Select, maybe not in your tenure before then, any reports
Services.
of donations of services.
No, I think the only time it would ever come up is if it was a professional service, like if
Okay.
we were,
Graphic design.
a graphic designer would be a good example, or an appraiser who offered to appraise things for us for free. But I don't think it includes service work, like
Yeah.
that in areas where we're open to the public, for the public to perform volunteer opportunities for the library. I think that this would be more a donation of professional services.
So we're past 15 minutes on this particular policy. I do want to note that we said that we wanted the deed of gift form to be separate from whatever policy we adopt, although it may be included in the document that we upload to the website. And so I would just remind the folks that are drafting this that we want the date of approval and amendment dates to follow that right of refusal paragraph before we move on to the deed of gift form when this is published, to show what is the policy and what is not.
Will do.
All right, great. So we might be ready to vote on that in January. Moving on to the community information policy.
So the community information policy, the reasons for revision, we wanted to separate the internal procedures from the policy. The existing policy has a lot of internal procedures, so they are not just deleted, they are separated into internal procedures at the end of the revised policy. We also wanted to.
But that won't be public.
Right, that is not what you'd be approving, only
Right.
the policy, but the internal procedures is just information, so you know that we didn't just hack away all that content, that it still is important, but it's for the staff and how we are to implement the policy. And then for the sake of clarity, we revised it, and then we want to expand the language to include all the areas in the library where we share community information. It's not just limited to the rack in the foyer and the 2 bulletin boards. We have spaces throughout the library where we share information from the community that is not library specific with our patrons. So we wanted to just generalize that so that we didn't need to have a long list of the 18 specific spaces in the
Right, which
library
could
where we
change.
share, which could change, right? So, so those are the reasons we are submitting this revision for the trustees to consider.
And I should just note that I was the one that raised the question about the title, Community Information Policy, which I'm happy to go with if everybody's happy with it. I just wondered if it really communicates what it's about to the general public. And we did talk, Rob and I did talk about calling it the public posting of information policy.
Public posting policy.
Public posting policy.
Three
Um,
Ps.
And, there was some question about whether that opens the floodgates too much to, all sorts of random things. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm happy with community information policy if we think that works. But
Another suggestion would be community information sharing policy.
Does it have to be indoor? I'm serious about that. Does it have to be indoor to separate it from the outdoor community information that we?
Well,
are
in
gonna
the
be doing?
second paragraph, it does say within the library may be used.
No, I understand. Right.
Oh, you mean in the title?
In the title, these, that way people, if they're looking for, how do I get something on that bulletin board inside?
Yeah, I have to agree. The community information policy is not very descriptive. Folks are looking for, can I put something up on a bulletin board? It's not obvious that this is the one they're going to download to.
How about the
Understand.
public posting policy?
Indoor public posting policy.
Doesn't have a P, indoor doesn't have a P.
Remember, this is live.
So the word posting, not everything is posted, like
okay.
on a bulletin board. We have catalogs and things that are piles of things that can take it away. So I don't
Piles,
know,
there's a word.
posting.
Public
Suggest-
information sharing policy? Public
That's-
information- No.
I'll just for what Kay referred to, I was leaning towards the word community versus public because I think the intent is more about helping community organizations get the word out about the important things that they're doing and less about public information about a yard sale.
Community information sharing?
So,
policy?
but
No.
you know,
Community added
Sharing.
Community information sharing policies, sharing information by the community.
indoor.
I mean, honestly, I think you have to have indoor because we have a separate outdoor policy.
That is called.
That is correct.
The indoor
Indoor.
I don't think so.
community
information sharing policy. It's still easier to say than the, what is it? Public use of library bulletin boards and literature dissemination facilities.
I don't know if we need
Policy.
indoor in the title. I think the first sentence could say, this is for indoor, for sharing information for outdoor, for the outdoor policy, outdoor signage.
I think
policy.
the verbs,
No, I think we have
I-
a note at the bottom to refer, like, it's circular.
Yeah.
I do think the verbs are helpful, to get the verbs right in the policy so that folks know what's happening. Like information sharing, like as somebody who works all the time with computers and digital technology and thinks about security, like information sharing is very, very broad. And, it could come down to like privacy and things like that. Whereas what we're really talking about is like the acts of posting and distributing information.
And we're dealing with actual materials, like community materials.
Yeah.
Right. One
I'm
thing
saying
Kay and I
word.
talked about was
Internal.
that this is about
Because it's-
the sharing of physical information.
That's why I'm saying materials.
Like, we don't want to go down the road of opening up potentially our social media or other digital avenues for sharing.
Do we have examples from other libraries, what they call it?
Oh, no, I can check.
Okay, maybe that will help us narrow it. If we want to maybe table this and.
Here is
Table
one,
the
I
title.
just came up with this one, just to put it down there. Posting and distribution of community notices policy.
Yeah, I was thinking something similar to that in my mind.
What are the letters?
Can we just
Does
say,
it come up?
can we?
Does it- you get a good- a
Posting
good,
and just say distribution?
Distribution of community notices
No,
policy.
well, doesn't that mean that the library's giving them out though?
We
Yeah.
want some of those
It's-
items,
But not all of them.
not all, but some.
Distribution of public.
Community notices policy?
I said internal, what was I saying, internal, because he liked the word internal. I was trying to-
Indoor.
Indoor, but, because internal means within the library itself.
Internal posting policy, I don't know.
Maybe we'll continue to noodle on this for the next.
Yeah,
month or so.
internal often means just staff only.
Yeah.
that kind of- yeah.
Yeah.
feed it into AI and see what it
See what it
says.
spits out, ChatGPT.
Yeah,
Can I just
So-
say, I'm sorry, I just have one thing about the opening paragraph that's really bothering me, and
Thank you.
the library supports the tenet of intellectual freedom outlined in its mission statement, the United States Constitution, and the American Library Association's Library Bill of Rights. The US Constitution says nothing about intellectual freedom.
Well, it has a First Amendment.
Right, but First Amendment says nothing about intellectual freedom either.
Well,
Technically,
Suppose
it's
by
freedom of
extension,
expression.
freedom of speech is,
Well, then maybe we
Freedom
should
of
put freedom of
expression
speech
are-
as opposed to the US Constitution, because it supports the tenets of intellectual freedom outlined in, like, this is Oxford comma style here, and that implies that the intellectual freedom is outlined in the US Constitution, which it absolutely is not.
Interesting.
So the original language on that was the quote, free speech provisions of the Constitution of the United States.
I think that's,
and the,
Better,
and the use of the word outlined is also what doesn't fit the Constitution.
Right. Sorry, that just really bothered me.
So we could insert free speech amendments of the Constitution,
Or is the free speech provisions
free
of
speech
the,
provisions.
without the quotes around free speech, which.
Well, I will say the intellectual freedom is a larger umbrella than freedom of expression. And intellectual freedom, I have no, I'm absolutely sure that the Library Bill of Rights covers intellectual freedom in a
Library
much
Bill of
more
Rights
broader
does
sense.
No.
Right, but it's introducing all of those, right? It's
Right,
saying
but-
that our approach to intellectual freedom
Grammar nerd here,
is
Oxford comma though.
yeah, I see what you mean.
So are you thinking maybe taking out the Constitution altogether?
Well, just like
Just
real life.
Intellectual freedom.
I mean, we could keep it. I mean, we could. I think it seems more. I mean, it seems more appropriate to talk about our mission statement and the American Library Association's Bill of Rights. I don't know if we also need the Constitution, but.
I feel like we're splitting hairs a little bit here.
No, I just said it just bothered me. I mean, I'm perfectly happy to be outvoted. That's fine.
Right, because we're talking about the tenets of intellectual freedom, right? And so it's the components of what represents intellectual freedom. And United States Constitution absolutely is part of the components and tenets of intellectual freedom.
It doesn't outline them. How about changing the word outline to embodied in?
Galen has a.
What I was gonna suggest is reorder the order that you've got these listed in. Neither put the free speech part of the United States Constitution at the very end of the sentence,
Yes.
or put it in at the very beginning and put the library supports the free speech tenets of the United States Constitution and the tenets of intellectual freedom outlined in its mission statement and the American Library Association.
Yeah.
Library Bill of Rights. Just reorder the sentence, and then I think you've got everything solved.
I would say intellectual freedom embodied in the United States Constitution and outlined in the other two things.
Thank you. Sorry.
Right?
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
It may,
Embodied in the United States Constitution.
Embodied.
I think the Constitution comes first anyway. And outlined in.
For the last sentence in the first paragraph, I think we need more description there. The library does not endorse viewpoints expressed, nor does it assume responsibility for the accuracy of information. I think we need to say like posted on such bulletin boards or just like, I think we need to specify it.
Which one are you on?
The very last sentence. The library does not
Oh.
endorse. Like, I think we're trying to say that any community information that is thus displayed, we are not endorsing or checking for accuracy, but it's not limited.
Posted under this policy or something like that.
Yeah, something like
It's not a
that.
part of our policy.
That needs to make sure it's not applying to everything.
You're section 230 there.
Okay, so at the end, you want to say posted under this policy.
Something like that.
Well, that's not only posted, but.
Or
Yeah.
Allowed,
Displayed in the
displayed.
library.
Allowed, yeah, allowed's a good word.
Allowed
Yeah.
under this policy. Can I ask another question about the policy?
Yes.
and so it's okay with me. It talks about, business days to review, but there's no standard for review.
Right, who is reviewing? Is it the director's discretion? Circulation, head, reference, head.
It actually
Where's the
doesn't
part
say
where,
in the policy.
because it should probably say this is the library director's discretion. Should we be having that?
Circulation
that's true.
supervisor is in the internal.
It used to say the circulate, oh yeah,
in
it
the
must be
internal.
submitted to the circulation desk.
So.
Well, that goes to
Yeah.
circulation, that's insane.
So yeah, it is in this in the internal procedures, which will not be part of the policy.
But even that, I don't think has a standard for review, does it?
I believe that the intention that we had there was so that the public didn't assume that if they handed something to us, that it would immediately go out. I don't
The
think
3-day business days for review.
right. So maybe we could rephrase it to ensure that
And it seems like this is where we should have that same sort of language as before,
maybe-
the
or maybe
discretion
like-
of the library director or something.
It will be posted no earlier than 3 days.
Yeah.
Or allowing 3 business days,
up to,
no,
allowing up to.
allowing up to 3 business days. No, hold on, I just need a circulation desk. And will be posted up to 3 business days pending discretionary review of the library director, or whatever the wording we've used in other policies is.
Yeah, I think we should introduce the possibility of it not
Of being
allowed.
rejected, yeah.
Since
At
we
the
have
discretion of
internal
library
procedures
director.
about.
Just put that at the end of that number. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good. My
But that begs this question of do we need a publicized standard of review, especially after our laudable references to intellectual freedom at the beginning, and then our arbitrary approach to reviewing things before posting them.
But the outdoor signage policy has nothing about what the standards are.
Yeah, so
And I think it talks about discretion.
Just the discretion of the
It seems we should
director.
probably have that
Let's take a more
same
review.
discretionary standard here.
yeah,
I wonder, does the ALA's Library Bill of Rights have any guidelines on this that you can just incorporate? Or is it much more broader and would it really be applicable to?
in other words, would we be in contradiction if we weren't following?
Right, or does it have guidelines for, times when you can reject something, if it's hate speech or
Right.
incitement to
I
violence or
also
something like that?
Do we want to have limitations? Sorry.
Right, and is there a set of limitations that we can just incorporate by reference rather than creating a brand new one?
But doesn't just discretion cover it all?
The library
It
director's
should, yeah.
discretion.
It does. It just suggests arbitrariness.
How about library director's reasonable discretion?
Lawyerly thing to do.
Maybe. We're at 15 minutes on this policy now.
So can I ask Rob, do you feel like we need anything from your perspective as the director who ultimately the buck stops with you, right? So do you feel like we need a more clearly stated list of, acceptable or unacceptable? Do you think there's any pros and cons to including that kind of to exclude hate speech or obscenity or, incitement to violence, any of that kind of stuff? Or should we just assume that that's part of the
You get
library?
into trouble when you start putting a list as
Yeah.
to what you haven't put in the list.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with.
Yeah, so better
She
not to
just
like
said.
make a list because then.
Probably 95+% of rejections would be related to it's too big or it happened last weekend, so it doesn't apply anymore.
What an ugly
You know,
poster.
Like, not.
So not to open up,
Things.
sorry, Rob. Not to open up a can of worms, but just doing some on the fly research. A lot of peer libraries, including Somerville and Brookline, do have hate speech policies. likely for this exact reason, that you need to have some sort of standard when you can say, no, you can't say that, or you can't post that. Is it worth considering having some sort of standard like that incorporated into this policy? Is it?
Or maybe there's already exists some sort of library, common standard in the Association of Libraries that we could make reference to. Some existing standard.
I'm gonna put myself back in here as chair and say that this is not fully baked. And we're gonna need to spend a little more time on this. Both in terms, I think, of research between meetings as well as discussion next meeting on whatever we end up calling this policy. So I'm gonna table it for now. And I think we've have some really good thoughts about what we need to be thinking about in the next draft of this.
That impacts our other signage policy with the note about.
Yes, it does. It does. Hopefully these dominoes will fall Sunday.
Dominoes.
So moving on to our last policy, the study room policy to review today.
So the reasons for revising this are listed here. We wanted to separate internal procedures from the existing policy clarity. We wanted to strengthen maximum occupancy language, which came up as an issue this fall with patrons. We wanted to update the language so that with the implementation of our online room reservation system, we wanted to remove language that's included in other library policies and doesn't need to be repeated here. And then we want to update a policy with an eye to additional potential visions based on phase 4 coming down the road. So the internal procedures and information are included at the very end, which would is just for your information to know that some of this information did not just disappear, that it's will be used by our staff to implement the policy, but wouldn't be part of what you would be voting on.
Yeah, I also think that in this case for this policy, these internal procedures are much less involved in what the policy means to the public than the internal procedures that we had removed from the community information policy revision, which I think is helpful. I think it makes this a little bit easier for us to review in my mind.
I have comments. Should I offer my comments?
Please do.
Go ahead.
But no, you want to go first?
You go first.
So a general comment, the first sentence talks about they're available for patrons to use. It doesn't say for what purposes it can be used. It simply says what they can't be used for. I'm not sure that it wouldn't make sense to adopt some of the language from the existing policy for patrons to use for individual and small group study. I don't know that but there's a reason what it's for as compared to simply saying they can use it, but you can't use it for just these other things. The existing policy referred to, I think, study, research, reading and writing. I don't know that you need all of that, but I think for patrons to use for individual and small group study purposes. But otherwise you're just saying what it can't be used for. That's my first comment.
Can I follow? Would you strike the second sentence then? Or are you saying?
No, I don't mind having the second sentence, but I felt a little bit odd not saying what you can use it for, only saying what you can't use it for.
Well, I think it probably is to be broad enough not to delineate, what you can use it for. People can use it to go in and meditate, or, if they wanted to.
Well, I was confused actually about that because it seems like we're saying if people wanted to if someone has somebody coming in from out of town and he wants to talk with them, okay, you can't reserve a study room for that.
You can.
Well, that's
It's not
socializing.
excluded.
That's socializing.
It's not to say that they are going to be socializing, they may be doing a lawyer transaction or something.
But what if they're
That's
just,
private business.
But that's
That
private
could be
business.
private business.
I mean, I don't know how we're policing what people doing when they're in,
Doors closed.
Yeah, doors closed.
when they're in the room, but, you know, this seems to be saying you can't meet a friend from out of town and say, oh, let's get a room at the library. Because so I was a little bit confused.
And people do run tutoring businesses out of those study rooms, right?
Yeah.
And that we specifically want to prohibit, right?
I
Or
will
no,
tell you
right?
that the tutors are finding that they're not getting in there fast enough to reserve a room.
Because they're not up at midnight.
That's correct.
Someone's gonna build a bot.
So we will be writing a tutor policy
Mhm.
As a separate policy,
as a separate policy.
because that is an issue, Jay, that you just raised.
And I'm not saying it should or should not be allowed. I don't know.
That's gonna be a
Yeah.
big discussion.
Okay.
Is there guidance from the town regarding that specific issue?
On tutors?
Yes.
No, I mean, we have special circumstances here that I'm sure they would not understand or consider.
Can I make 2 comments? Number 1, are these only used for study? Like, the limit, I'm not in the question, the way that Jay is asking it, but in the, these rooms are reservable for people to have small meetings. Should they not be called, shouldn't we not call them study rooms?
Well, I wasn't sure about that. I wasn't sure whether the purpose is.
Right, exactly. And then number 2, just a minor question. Line number 6 says patients should not fix anything to the walls, block the door, like a chair or other item, or cover the glass portion of the door in any manner. Should it say patients should not permanently affix anything to the wall? Because if you're studying in a small group, sometimes you'll hang up a poster and write on it, like with tape or something like that.
We have
No,
we don't
whiteboards
want
in each of the
Okay.
rooms.
I've never been in one, so I don't know. That's
We
why I'm
got
asking.
whiteboards in each of the rooms now. We will check out markers to them if they request them.
Thank you very much.
Let's just say the paint can't take that kind of stuff on the wall.
I do like Jay's idea of having a list of uses rather than a list of prohibited uses, because it gives a little bit of direction for, I mean, I guess it's self-evident that it's a study room, but I thought that list of uses in the original policy, unless any of those were problematic, it seemed like kind of a good way of defining what they're for.
Yeah.
Rather than just creating a negative inference of
Right.
what they're not for.
That's what
I also just wanted to return to another point, which is we call these study rooms because that's a library term of art, right? Like that's what we call these types of rooms in a library. Not that just they're exclusively for study, but we call this size room a study room when it's in a library. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
In number 1, about the reservations must be made up to 1 day in advance. And if the rooms are not booked prior to that 1 day in advance, then what?
If they're not booked, they can keep booking until they're full.
So then why does it say up to 1 day in advance?
Maybe it should say maybe booked up to 1 day in advance.
Maybe.
Why can't, they can be booked anytime? If they're not,
Well, no,
if they're
No,
booked,
it's not available.
it's not available.
2 days worth of reservations in any given time. That's how the system is set up.
So this has to do when someone can start to make a
Mhm.
reservation.
Right,
right.
But this seems to be referring to when they can end
So
making
it
the
should be may,
reservation.
not must.
This up, when it says up to 1 day, it gives me the impression that that's when,
Right.
after that point, you can't make a reservation, and
Just
that's not
delete
true.
up to.
No, just say maybe made up to, maybe.
How about can be made in advance, starting midnight, the day
Beginning
before,
Day
whatever.
in advance, or
Yeah,
midnight the day before the.
I will tell you that the system does know if there's a holiday. So with Thanksgiving that just happened, the system would not allow people on Wednesday to make a reservation for Friday because it's Thursday was closed.
So should it be 1 business day then?
Probably, that might probably cover it, say business
But
day,
our business is 7 days a week.
Yeah.
except for legal
Business
holidays.
days. No, but I mean, in the
Yeah.
outside world.
Except for days the library is
Monday to
closed.
Friday.
Yeah, wow.
I mean,
Getting
I
back to
think,
what you said, what's the edit? What is the edit?
Study room reservations may be made through the library's online system and can be made up to one day.
It's not up to, you're putting now the date starting when they could make the reservations.
Yeah, so maybe up
Yeah,
to.
no, I
Right, right,
understand.
but
Just
it's
not-
so, yeah,
Reservation made starting midnight the day before. I get confused which is the
Why don't you just put
midnight?
down when you can do it?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But the issue is what's only relevant is when they can start to make the reservation,
So
because
starting
otherwise you
up
can make
to-
the reservation
Yeah.
for as long as there's
Right.
availability.
Instead of up to
As
starting.
early as one day.
Could say reservations may be made starting
Starting at midnight.
one open library day prior to day of reservation.
Starting after midnight the day prior.
Well, we don't know that it's
Well,
always
you
gonna
wanna
be
put
midnight,
midnight.
because you don't know what the, you don't know. what
Then the whole
computer
system
system might
will-
change.
I will, its system may change. in
Oh,
the
okay,
future,
then-
But at the moment, it's midnight.
Society.
That's what we
But you
figured
need,
out.
people are
Can I
gonna wanna
ask you a
know
question?
what the information.
Dave,
Go for it.
back in the day, what was it you had to make a reservation the day before?
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes, it was the day before.
It
We
was
would
the
only
day
do,
before.
we would do that day and we would do the day, or the day after, or whatever. It
Right.
was, you could only do, it still says the same thing here. It's just that it's a little confusing. Day of and the next day is what you can make a reservation for.
Right,
So if-
theoretically, if there was availability right now, I mean, library's closed, but
Library's closed,
Right.
but if there was availability at 8 o'clock, and today there was,
Mhm.
you could make a reservation, if you got in there at 7:58, because it takes a little time to fill it out, for 8 to, 8:45. I will tell you that the system has a little interesting quirk, that if you start making your reservation after the hour, quarter hour, half hour, quarter hour, it will not let you do it for that time, it will take you to the next time, second.
So somebody couldn't board,
Can't do it like real time, like I want it now.
Real time, we may be able to get you in there, but in actuality, you will, if you're in that little time period, in between the hour and the half hour and the quarter hour, you're gonna be at the, next time.
I have a different comment.
Drives us crazy.
Okay.
Number 7, I would just make a standalone sentence, because I don't think it's its own. I mean, it's a rule, but it's talking about the other rules. I just make that the final paragraph or final
You just take the
sentence.
number out.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
It's not.
I wouldn't drop it under, because it's a list of rules, and this is just saying, if you don't follow
This
those
is what will
rules,
happen.
these are the consequences, yeah.
Good point.
is that number 7?
Sounds like a rule.
Number 7 of the.
It's not a rule to be say you have to follow.
Oh,
That's what will
no, yeah,
happen.
Yes.
Okay, so we need to resolve the language on when you can start making a reservation. Otherwise, and we need to. Two people here have said we want a list of things you can do to retain either the existing list,
I think a general.
what it's generally
is there
for.
a reason to not just keep the
Yeah.
existing list?
for individual and small group study.
That's what I thought, for individual and small group study purposes. You don't have to
Yeah.
throw in the research, reading and writing.
Individual and small group study purposes, and or meetings, study or meetings.
That's a small group, a small group is a meeting.
Well, could the tutor use that, person who's
I think
running?
study is broad enough, because you come to the library to study, we're calling them study rooms, so I don't think anybody needs to be like the middle of it. So I think individual or small group study is perfect.
And so then what does that mean for the second sentence? What are we doing with that? You know, because it sounds like some of those things might be fine.
We don't
And
need the
we're
second sentence.
outline. Do we still is it still clear that we would maybe tell a local tabletop gaming group that like, no, I'm sorry, you can't reserve our study room for your tabletop game?
I would think it's still useful to have that second sentence in there, just to, it helps to clarify the first.
Yeah.
Telling you what you can do and what you can't do.
But it is a good question, people meeting up to play a game of cards or any other kind of game in there violate this policy because it's both entertainment and socializing.
I mean, as it currently stands, yeah, that would be a violation.
Do we,
Because these say explicitly not to be used. It does not say that these are like illustrative of things that we might discretionarily prohibit.
right,
I don't,
will we be enforcing it, policing it? And if not, then why would we list it in there? That's the sort of the question. If we are gonna be enforcing and policing it, then that's fine, that's perfectly accurate.
do you have any sense about what people are using them for now?
Yeah. They are using it for tutoring purposes from the Human Community Council. We have study groups that go in there. We have tutors that will use it for that purpose. I think for the gaming part, we have, I think, occasionally and very, very occasionally, may have a mahjong people come through if they can't find a table outside of the computers.
I would have thought things that are allowed in the library should be allowed in the study rooms, but if we want to make the study rooms just for study, that's perfectly
Looking for
fine.
quiet, the walls are not exactly soundproof.
Yeah.
I love the prospect of an article in the local paper about arrested for playing mahjong in the library study room.
I would please do not eliminate the sleeping part. We've had issues in the past on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Which is one of the reasons why there is a sentence saying you cannot block windows.
And also, we don't want to have like business people calling to run their business meetings, to use our, occupy our study rooms so that to run their business meetings.
Well, they can only do it 2 hours a day. Like if somebody has a Zoom meeting and they're like, Xfinity is updating our internet on December 16th. If my husband is working from home, needs to use a private room for a meeting, are we saying that's not allowed? It's
That's
only
allowed.
2 hours.
it's okay with me.
This is one of those policies where its implementation is all gray,
Mhm.
Very great.
because it's,
I don't think we want to encourage local business people to be running business meetings in there, because that could fill up.
right, but staff aren't policing whether that Zoom meeting is a personal business or professional business.
Yeah.
And we don't care. We're not getting into that.
I guess, there's a finite amount of rooms and they're in pretty high demand, so we just have to ask ourselves, what are they there for? What's special about these rooms that, there's other rooms, probably not too many other rooms that are truly publicly needed, but what is special about these? They're a library, they're a relatively quiet environment, and near all of these learning resources. So I think there's some logic to saying, yeah, there are uses that these really should not be put to, just as a guiding statement. Even if we can't enforce it 24/7, it sends a message that, hey, you really shouldn't be coming in here and using this as your home office.
Yeah, as a guiding statement, we don't want realtors coming in and, meeting with their clients and signing their, closing documents. I mean, that's not what these rooms are for.
I think the biggest difference between both the rooms upstairs in the study rooms is that there's a door. That's the business rooms are quiet. Both those are quiet spaces. So there's a lot that can be done up there in the open. But when you get to maybe this level of intimacy of having the door, it sets up a different dynamic where
Creates a private space.
So,
it creates that.
so I think,
Yes.
sorry. We're at 15 minutes on this one, and I would love us to wrap this up by 9:30, or close to it as a whole meeting. It sounds like we might be close with this policy, but we definitely need to be thinking a little bit more about some of these indicators, especially in that second sentence. I wonder, I'm optimistic that we could get to another revision that could be voted on in January, with this particular policy. Um, and so I would suggest that those folks who are interested in taking another pass at some of this work with Rob and Kay on this policy and the other ones that that are currently being reviewed, so that we can finalize these in January. Are there other policies that we are hoping to start in January, Kay and Rob?
You had Megan and Josh
There's
said
the
you were,
list.
you were scheduled
Yes.
to.
Yes, the children's room policy. What Josh was interested in.
Should we not be doing the tutoring policy because it's around the
That's
same
gonna be a
time? as
brand
study
new
room?
Photo.
Oh,
and,
yes, filming at the park
filming
in the
at the park,
library,
right,
it's a new policy.
Was it
We
new
don't
policy?
have
Yeah,
that,
we don't have
Okay.
that.
so,
That's new also.
Other libraries have. it
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, but
we'll
those,
see
I
what we
think
can get done.
I know Wellesley, I love, like Wellesley has one, so.
Yeah, there are things.
Is
There'll
there
be
one of
something-
these, is there one of these policies which, like the tutoring policy, is kind of needs to be in conversation with the ones that are currently on our table that we should be looking at? I'm nervous to add too many more policies under review until we dispose of a few, because these meetings are just going to last forever.
Yeah.
It looks like based on today's conversation, that it almost takes 2 meetings for the group of 4 policies.
Yeah, so I would just,
Add what we had for the 2A, 2B, and 2C, which was our winter section of policies to revise and see if there are any that aren't really tied to others that we could work on for January. But
Okay.
I think you're correct because behavior policies also have to do with space.
Right, both
So-
the patron and the children policy are referred to in the study room policy, so
Right.
those way the ones too.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they're a little more needy, so.
Yeah.
At least the appropriate.
So I'll look at it and be in touch. I'll email all the trustees with a suggestion of what will be presented in January that has not been presented. And why.
sure.
Yeah.
I leave it to your two discretions to kind of reach out about what we take on next, just with the suggestion that we not go crazy. Okay, let's move on. We have another item of business with voting with the Library Art and Exhibits Committee report, and I would like to make sure we dispose of that for the Art and
very
Exhibits Committee.
You could just pass those around. Okay, so just to introduce, I'd like to vote tonight, if possible, on the 2025 art exhibits, where it's somewhat truncated for 2025. And on this list shows what we have. January, February, we have Robert Shetterly, Americans Who Tell the Truth, and a talk on January 5th. February and March, the artist we were hoping for is not ready, so we have an opening there. April is, as usual, Needham Open Studios. May, Needham High School Scholastic Awards. And beyond that, I guess it's a little up in the air. June, we had talked about being closed for renovations, but from what we're hearing tonight, we may not close until August. So for tonight, we can vote on January, April, and May.
Great. Can I hear a motion to accept the following exhibitions?
I'd like to make a point of order, only because I just went to this meeting, like for new town, like employee things.
Yeah.
I don't think we can vote on this because it was not put in the agenda and it has to be as a, like.
It is on the agenda. It's a
No,
standing
but
item.
like, I think, I might be wrong, but I think like things that are like exhibits need to be as part of the open meeting law. I might be wrong, I don't
Okay.
know, but that is very complicated, so that's why I'm just asking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever quite operated that way with the arts. And we have our item on the agenda every month, and sometimes we go in and seek a vote.
That's fine.
to approve
That's
it
fine. I'm
from
just
artists.
asking.
But, if other people don't.
I don't know the answer.
This
I do not know
exhibit
the
is-
answer to that.
The exhibit is starting January 1st.
Right.
So,
Well, it's only the agenda that has to be publicized, right? And
Okay,
the-
that's, again, like, they were talking about all kinds of things, and like, I just went to this meeting, which is the only reason I even bring it up.
Right, yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think
Helen
that
has her hand up.
Yeah, the committee itself is open meeting, and that is when we do the discussion of what's going to go to the trustees. So it goes into our minutes.
Okay.
So it is covered.
publicly posted, yes, it has
It
been
is
publicly
posted.
posted.
We post our meetings, we post our minutes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering my question, Helen. I appreciate it.
Yes.
and all of this and all of these items should be in our minutes as if we vote to adopt them.
Oh, yeah, no, that I agree.
So
To approve.
Second.
thank you. Second.
Thank you.
All right. So any discussion before any more discussion before I move to a roll call vote? Okay. All those in favor of adopting this slate of exhibitions, say aye. Kay Cahill,
Hi.
Rob Pettit,
Aye.
Jay Fialkoff,
Aye.
Michael O'Neill,
Aye.
Megan Small,
Aye.
Joshua Small,
Aye.
and me, Erhard Grafe. Aye. It is unanimous. Thank you. Is there anything else to report, Kay?
No, not tonight, thank you.
Rob, do you have anything to update us on MacIver series? Jay, Friends of the Library update?
I'll just mention that there's a terrific program scheduled for January. The well-known art critic Sebastian Smee used to write for the Globe, now writes for the Washington Post. Pulitzer Prize winner with a new book about Impressionism, which is the subject of a big exhibit in the National Gallery in DC. Anyway, he'll be talking in, I forget the date, in January. I think it's sold out. Is there a wait list? How does that work?
There is a wait list that's rapidly filling. It's, I believe, I think it's the 12th. Yeah.
So it should be a great event. Our second Pulitzer Prize winner in the last 2 years.
And may I dovetail on that? I'll be sending around notices that all of you could share the Robert Shetterly talk on January 5th. I'll send you a notice, and we'd like to get people in the door for that.
Thank you. Library Foundation update, Jay?
I don't have an update. They have a meeting scheduled for next week. I know that they've had conversations with Rob about, your requests, and I think they were all approved at the last meeting.
And I know we'll be having some conversations with regard to the phase 1 costs as well. And so we will report any conversations that I and Rob and others have with the foundation about that. All right, last section is trustee comments. Does anyone have any comments?
Long night.
Yeah, I'll just thank you all, trustees and staff, for the work this evening. An extra thanks to Kay and Rob and all the library staff who worked on the policy revisions ahead of today's meeting. Really appreciate all the effort on that.
Thank you.
Feel better, Erhard.
Feel better.
All right. Looking for a movement to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second. And so I have to do a roll call. Roll call to approve this. Kay Cahill,
Aye.
Rob Pettit. I Rob Pettit. Sorry, delay.
Aye.
Jay Fialkoff,
Aye.
Michael O'Neill,
Aye.
Megan Small,
Aye.
Joshua Small,
Aye.
and me, Erhard Grafe. Aye. We are adjourned, unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a good holiday.